All right, and welcome to the very first of our live YouTube lives. We are going to be going for 30 minutes with all of the Q&A that's come through from our challenge. So big welcome to everyone who is on the call at the moment. We are going to be taking the questions which came in from the group. We're also going to be taking the questions which are going to be showing up that I managed to see on our Facebook Live as well, right? That's the plan. So do please post in the comments exactly where you are in the world right now. Here, I'm going to actually just post them here too. Hi, everyone. Good to see you. And I'm in Poland right now. That's where I happen to be. So just as a quick recap, right, before we jump into this, and do know that if you do actually ask 7 questions and I miss it, then my apologies. I'll come back as I see the comments, right? But you'll see when I'm actually looking at the comments and going through those questions as we go as well. But let me first of all just give a bit of recap, especially for those who might be just joining us here and didn't even see what we're actually doing online at the moment. So I'm going to, first of all, take us to the Facebook group, which is where we're actually doing all the conversations right now. And I'm seeing already that there's some chat in here as well. You can see this is the group here. There's a link that we've actually dropped into the YouTube video, so you can come join us. It's all free of charge for the week. We're giving away $50,000, and this is just a fun way of us getting everyone involved in your portfolio plan in crazy times, where we all have an opportunity to kind of like learn from top experts on everything from cryptocurrencies, NFTs, through to basically how you invest in global property, global shares, and why different people are doing that in different ways as well. So we actually had the video today, which was basically working together with like a super awesome guest. This is Mark Robinson, who's based in Australia, and he has like built his academy to actually be supporting entrepreneurs all over the world. You can see like all the posts that are down here at the moment, and we've also got I saw already a question mark. There's a few questions on here as well, so I will come to some of these too. But Elizabeth asked the question, well, what about yesterday's session? We've got all that in here. If you actually just click on the announcements tab, you'll see all of them. So this is day 1, but you also say, here's a Q&A session we're doing right now. Here's the day 1, here's the day 2, right? So you can see here, we've already had like, close to 2,000 people that have actually come on and watched this. And we've got like over 600 comments, lots of really great people on here. So if you want to be in a community of amazing entrepreneurs that are all learning how to actually invest more effectively and how to even create their own cryptocurrencies, their own asset classes, we're actually going through all of that right now as well on here. So that's one thing I wanted to share. The second thing I wanted to share was this. We basically, over the last 2 days, have already gone through the overview of what are the prizes we're going to be giving out at the end of the week for the best plans. The people who I'm going to be sharing with, which is Mark Robinson, that happened today. And then we had Marcus, which is going to be tomorrow. He runs my crypto club, where we're going to be talking about everything to do with crypto. We then have got Simon Zushi from Property Investors Network, which is going to be on the Thursday. And then I'm going to be wrapping it all up with the portfolio plan on the Friday. And without going through all the details of what we already covered in terms of the top 5 investment trends, and also why we call it Investor 5.0, linking to Society 5.0, and the brand new growth of where we're going right now, and all the things we talked already about, ARK Invest, the 5 platforms and the 14 different technologies that are growing right now, what's going on with cryptocurrencies and why that's happening, and what people like Masayoshi Son and the top investors are doing to be investing in the future. We're going to cover some of this on our Q&A right now. So we had all of that. And then what we actually did today was we basically walked through what is the basis of the template that we have. So any of you who missed the template, there's a template here you can download. All of this is on GeniusU. So this here is our Impact Investor Challenge, which actually gives all the details together with the steps, where once you start it every day, the Facebook Lives as well as the YouTube Lives are going to be in here. So we've got the 5 days here at the moment. And you can actually connect with all the others that actually are on here as well. So we actually have got basically the whole community that are connecting on here. And you can find out everything about them by basically just clicking on the students page, which is this one here. So we already got like close to 200 that will come in here, because this is where you can actually get the templates and get them submitted. So let's just take an example. Let's take Paul here, right? I don't think I've met Paul before, or maybe I have, but here's Paul. He's joined it. You can see here, he's a star profile. He's in the UK. He's a speaker, a property investor. His top purpose is good health and well-being. And then you can see what his top profiles are. So he's been busy here on GeniusU at the moment, which is great. And he's certified as one of our flow consultants, which is awesome. So this actually gives you a chance to connect people. I'm going to add a friend here as well. This template, you'll see, then goes through getting really clear on what your future vision is, because your plan needs to set around yourself. And I gave you examples of my future vision and what that looks like. Your personal compass, which is where you're at right now. And I gave you an example of my personal compass and what that looks like. And then we also then had the next step, which is exponential waves. What are all the ways that are out there right now? And we actually cover this in today's sessions on basically what that looks like. And you can see here that we actually have already gone through not just the exponential waves, but the white paper from ARK Invest, which actually shows you exactly what the 5 different platforms are and what is the level of disruption we are about to go through at the moment, how this actually then adds up to $50 trillion in market cap compared to 10 trillion today. So over the next 10 years, we're seeing this massive growth that's taking place in this area. And what it is when you start comparing what most people are doing in the market right now, which is just focusing at an asset. Like, I hope Bitcoin goes up, or I hope, like, if I buy into GameStop, it's going to go up, as opposed to an actual portfolio plan where you're thinking about your entire portfolio and what the strategy is in each of these areas. And again, if you have not yet watched it, I highly recommend you watch today's session where we go through what the 8 criteria is for investors. And we also went through the pyramid, the Investor 5.0 pyramid, which Mark went through today, where each one of these different areas is a different level from foundation and wholesale on the kind of returns you'd be getting, through to basically what happens at the active trading focused asset sector, up to the basically early investing stage where we talked about things like, crypto and pre-IPO phases. And we gave examples as we went through this on exactly whether it's bank account, gold, ANZ shares, which was one of Mark's examples, putting your home in here if you wanted to do that, why that can impact your numbers, putting Ethereum in from a year ago. And we actually showed what that growth rate looks like and how you can actually measure each of these based on net asset value, cash return, capital return. And there's been some questions on that, which we're going to cover as we go through all of this as well. So we've got a super exciting session on what we're about to cover at the moment. Let me just go to all of the comments and chat. Okay, so I can see lots of people here chatting already. We've got here Ellie from Portugal, Tina, hi from Denmark. We've got Anthony, hi from Liverpool. Elizabeth is in Windsor, England. We've got Rita here from Latvia, which is awesome. Southern California, good to see you here, Len Yi. We've got like Jez also here from UK, and we have the Red Pill, who has a question here. I've been in crypto since 2015. My belief is that the governments will ban them once the Great Reset happens. What is your thoughts? Look, we're at a point right now where, like, I don't know if you guys have studied a lot of history of what happened when England was printing money and looking to stimulate its own economy. And there was a whole bunch of people moving over to America for the first time, right? And at that point, they're like, trying to use the British pound and the French were using francs to basically be legal tender in America and try and control that as well. And what do the Americans do? They say, well, sorry, we don't need your pounds. We're just going to create US dollar, right? And when that happened, then there was no jurisdiction over that anymore, right? So no matter how much governments might think they can control cryptocurrency, it's in a new land, right? Like basically the metaverse is a land as much as like moving over to America is a land. And there's nothing that they can actually do to stop you from actually trading in crypto. In fact, if they do that, they're not going to be able to tax it, right? So I think it's too late for them to do that. They have tried doing that in the past. And there's many examples that we've given about basically different coins in the past that actually have been made legal. But actually the only thing they were actually able to go on was effectively creating a physical legal tender, right? So there's some really good examples of like Liberty Coin, for example. If you look up Liberty Coin, he was arrested, the founder of Liberty Coin. He was basically charged by the SEC for, creating new currency and at the same time, like having coins. They couldn't get him on anything except the fact that he had coins that were passing off as US dollars. They couldn't get him on the fact he created Liberty Coin. So I think it's already too late, and that's why they're not taking more action. China has just basically had major clampdown on the mining that takes place in China. Has that stopped the mining? Absolutely not, right? China is still the #1 place for Bitcoin mining right now. So let's go on to a couple of the different questions that are showing up here, and I will give the answers as we go. These are all the questions that already have come up through the Facebook post and so on, and we're just going to kind of go through them pretty much in order here as we go. We have a question from Tim here who says, okay, question. On the future vision, there are 3 timescales: 1 year, 5 years, a decade. Which one are we going for? So what Tim is basically sharing here is that on our plan, let me just get it here. Okay, so on our plan here, I'm just going to share my screen again. We have got this one here, which is basically the template. There's edits going on templates at the moment. I wouldn't recommend anyone actually fills out the template until we get to at least Thursday, because then you know what all the steps are. But you can try adding some of it in at the moment. This first one, which is the future vision, this is where it's all about the next 5 years, right? So it's 5 years from today. Put yourself 5 years in the future, visualize what that looks like. This is the year 2026. What would you have achieved? What does that look like? I've given my example here that in 5 years' time, I'm celebrating New Year diving with my family in Maldives, feeling so grateful for what happened back in 2021 with the education revolution, how Genius Group has grown from 300 million to 3 billion. By the way, these numbers, they're actually part of our plan. So it's not like just made up numbers. They're actually something we're really focusing at in terms of how we'd like to grow. And then basically how I'm also invested in the DeFi movement, showing entrepreneurship and investing is a very real alternative to a 9-to-5 job. So I talked about this yesterday, that I really believe that everyone's concerned about the fact that people won't have jobs because they're competing against robots in the future. This will not be a problem because people will be already realizing you don't have to compete with companies like Tesla and Amazon, where they have robots instead of people as they start growing, because you can invest in those companies and make more money by having Jeff Bezos or having Elon Musk and all their robot armies working for you. And you're making a lot more money doing that by investing in those companies than you would by actually trying to do a 9-to-5 job. And so we are seeing a whole growth of the retail investment off the back of that. But that's basically the 5 years that we're talking about there, right? That's the first thing that I will share with everyone. Second question, right? Second question here. We're going to go quick fire as we go through these now. We have Rebecca saying this. She's talking about inflation. I mentioned inflation and how we're having massive asset inflation at the moment. So she's made a comment here, right, which I want to reply to. She says, this is not an accurate way to measure inflation. Inflation is based on the cost of goods going up, not assets going up. So I just want to make this really clear to everybody as to what's really going on with inflation right now. And again, I'm going to share my screen here. The example I gave was, I said, listen, if you want to look at inflation today, let's take US dollar to Bitcoin, right? Because again, inflation in the past was looking at US dollar against gold, right? So let's look against Bitcoin. Let's take 1 year. This is inflation, right? Like what would one Bitcoin buy you, or sorry, what would $1 buy you in Bitcoin 1 year ago? And the answer is 0.00016, right? 0.00016, right? That means that you move the 17 and move it to 16 here, right? And basically that is where it was 1 year ago, right? So if it's gone from 0.00016 to 0.00017, it's lost already 90% of its value, right? Because you're going to only get like, a tenth of the Bitcoin that you could have got a year ago. So it's lost 90% of its value against Bitcoin in 1 year. That's asset inflation. It's because the asset itself is going up and the value of the asset is going up because the currency is going down in value. Now that's a particular asset as opposed to a commodity. So there's a really great article here, which I would just share with you. Let me just pull it up. There's this one here, where basically it's from Forbes. It said, will the real inflation please stand up? Why paying attention to asset price inflation is important for investors. And this basically explains how asset price inflation is a real thing, right? So when property is going up, stocks are going up, and it's going up because the money that's coming into the market is going to banks that then have to issue it out there, and they're giving it to the big investors who then are putting the money out. Even the stimulus checks that are going into the US economy are going into the stock market right now because people haven't got any particular way they're going to spend it. So if you say, well, then that means that, well, asset prices are going up and it is legitimate inflation, right? As you can see here, right? Then this is like a canary in the coal mine for what's about to come. This here, I want to just explain to everyone, why don't we see prices going up right now when it comes to the cost of bread, right? Or when it comes to, like your train ticket, right? It's because the way that inflation works, right? And this is the monetary theory of inflation, which pretty much is all part of modern monetary theory at the moment, is that if you actually take this idea of how money works, there are 3 variables, which basically include the volume of money, include the velocity of money, which is how much money is actually moving through the economy, which you can see here is the total production of the economy divided by the money supply, right? So basically what that means is if you've got double the money supply of the product in the environment, then this is going to be at half the velocity. If you actually increase by double the amount of production, right? So this actually increases in size, well, then obviously the velocity will go up as well, right? So at the moment, our velocity has been going down dramatically because we're not spending as much money. Production has gone down. And as a result of that, velocity has gone down as well. When you look at the actual price point of how inflation works, the price of goods, which is this equation here, the price of goods will change based on, number one, M, which is the amount of money in the system. If you double the amount of money in the system, and we have, believe me, doubled the money in the last year, if you like from all of time, if you actually take the total money in the system compared to a year ago, we're already triple the money in the system from a year ago. So if you double this number, then that means that the price of goods should double as well, right? That's what it should mean. And we can see asset prices going up by a lot more than double already. But in the actual economy itself, where people are buying things, if while the actual size of the money supply has doubled, if the velocity of that money has halved, if people just aren't spending the money as much because they're parking it in assets and other things, they're just not going out spending, prices do not have a pressure to go up. And so as a result, this pushes prices down. Right? We know that. Like if you're in a restaurant and people aren't coming in, you want to bring your prices down, right? So this is going down while this is going up, which means we're not feeling it. So does that mean that when the economy kicks off again, we're suddenly going to have massive price inflation? 100%. The Fed has already said that's what's going to happen. So anyone who's like saying, oh, we're okay, we're under 2% now, wait until you see what's going to happen the moment basically that we start seeing a shift in the market. And that's nothing compared to what's going to happen 3 to 4 years from now, when basically other alternatives to the US dollar come along. We basically already are looking at countries like China and Russia, where they're the first to actually produce digital currencies, but we don't need to wait for those countries. We already have got this happening with the likes of Ethereum, with Bitcoin, and all of the other cryptocurrencies right now as well, right? Why is the amount of production in the economy? So when this goes up, this also then will then end up having an impact on price, right? And it will actually push the prices down. But if the velocity goes up faster than production goes up, then the prices go up, right? So just be really aware that there's an artificial push down because the economy is closed, which is about to shift, and that's going to change. And again, come back in 6 months, 12 months, see if I'm right. But like, again, this is not my theory, right? This is economic theory and just how it works. Okay, so let's go on to the next question. The next question is Jeffrey Rose, who says, is Masayoshi's son considered an impact investor? So we talked about Masayoshi's son, right? Because like he's going to be wealthier than Elon Musk. And this is like super, super important, the way that, I was expressing this. He's invested in so many different IPO companies, but they're all part of the same growth that ARK Invest, that Elon Musk is all part of as well. We talked about 4 techs. So there's 5 platforms, there's 4 techs, right? There's fintech, which is totally changing the entire banking industry and money as we know it. There is, after fintech, green tech, which is basically what Elon Musk is part of. It's what the entire like agricultural and driverless car and like a solar power movement is all about. And then after that, there's edtech, which is all about the total transform and how we're thinking and how education itself is changing. And then finally, there's medtech, right, which is basically everything that's going on with basically the shift towards personalized medicine as well, right? So all these things are going on at the moment. If I was to basically like come over to the question on Masayoshi's son, here, I'll just share my screen again, and I will give you something really interesting. I don't know how many of you are aware of this, but Masayoshi's son has got a 300-day plan, right? 300-year plan. So he's got a plan for the next 300 years already, and this is all part of the SoftBank plan as well. And I'll show you what this plan actually looks like, right? If you go to the actual page for the SoftBank page, which is this one here, there's a great article here, right, which I'll drop in afterwards, right? The extraordinary vision behind Vision Fund. In fact, let me just pull this one, and I will just open it on here, and I'll post it in here. Good to see all the comments here as well. And I am seeing there are some questions being asked, but sorry if they kind of like roll up and I don't see all of them, right? So I'll answer like, 3 or 4 more questions here, then I'll come to the ones on here. If you asked a question and I missed it, ask it again, please, so I can kind of get to it as well. But basically, if you actually go to his page, you'll see here under SoftBank, vision and strategy, information revolution, happiness for everyone. He realized that because robots are taking over everyone, we're going to become more dislocated, right? So this whole thing is a definition of happiness. Different people will find different answers to love and be loved, live each day to be full, and so on. So he goes through the philosophy of being like loving, bringing happiness and giving inspiration to people. He's using like everything he knows about robotics, the singularity, to actually be part of things that are actually having a human touch and a human connection. There's a video you can watch, which is all about this as well. And then it goes through what the vision is and what their vision is for basically making the world a better place. He's been like on the acquisition trail at the moment. He's got the 300-year history of where they're growing. And then this actually breaks down into a very clear 30-year vision where he's actually mapped out already exactly what the vision is, right? What it is that they're actually looking to now achieve in terms of a world which in 300 years will basically look like this, like it's going to be unrecognizable from where it is today. Like the backlash of the Luddite movement, he's comparing to what's going on at the moment where robots are going to come smarter than humans. And then he talks about like the world 300 years from now and how it will be different. And our only hope against robots is to be more human, not to be more robotic, right? So the education system needs to change. Everything needs to change in terms of where we are right now. A lot of people don't realize what's really going on with cryptocurrency right now, where just talking about orders of magnitude, right? You can see him talking about quintillion and 100 million times a trillion, like what he's talking about here in terms of the growth of this. Most people don't know that when you take a URL, which is basically an address, which has an IP address and then also some words towards it, their URLs, an IP address and what it looks like, has got 10 characters, just 10, okay? So if you think about that, a million has got basically 7 characters, like a 1 and then 6 zeros. A billion, right, is going from basically, 7 characters to now 10 characters. So think of a URL as basically a billion, okay? Take that against something like an NFT or something like, a blockchain address. A blockchain address has got 64 characters. Like 64 characters for every like element of the blockchain. If you've got your own blockchain wallet, that's got itself 34 characters, right? So think about that for a moment, right? You've got 10, which is a billion. You add another 24 on top of that, which is a trillion, and you see the order of magnitude that we've been tracking companies that happen to have a website, right? And basically be able to find it anywhere in the world. Now think of objects, right? Whether it's like a property, which can be divided into a million times, or whether, it is like an artwork that gets sold for $69 million and then can be split 100 million times. That basically, once you actually realize that we have just created to an order of magnitude of over 24 times more, which is like 10 times 10 times 10 times 10 the ability to track everything on the planet. I was having this conversation with my daughter where she's saying, well, what could be the application for NFTs, for example, which allows you to have a unique identifier to any particular object? And I said, I gave an example of one of our community members. His name's Andy. He runs a company which is called Plant a Tree Today. It's based in Thailand. And what he found out was, because his whole focus is planting trees and helping to bring the environment back in Thailand. And he said that one of the biggest issues was that people were willing to buy a tree, but once you had that tree, there's no way to track that tree because they didn't actually, they were trying to do it with GPS and other things like that. But people were willing to buy it without realizing that the real value in that tree was not just that you bought it. It was that it was able to make money and help the environment at the same time. He was actually growing rubber trees because he found that when he grew rubber trees, the local villagers would look after the rubber tree. They would actually make sure that they were getting the rubber out of it and then looking after it because it can keep giving you rubber every single year. And then after 20 years, it could be dropped and another one could be put up. And then you could have it as timber. But it was like super renewable. And at the same time, it gave all the oxygen back to the planet. And with NFTs, you could actually basically track every single one of those trees, put it on the blockchain, have it so that you can sell it to others, keep a percentage of that cash flow coming through for yourself, give the rest of the people looking after it. And you've got a fully sustainable model, which allows us to actually totally transform the environment, right? And so we're going to see NFTs actually linked to pretty much everything in a way that we can then actually be able to go out there and get it funded. We're going to talk about that on tomorrow's session tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock UK time in the Facebook group together with Marcus DeMaria, who is an expert at cryptocurrency, right? So that's going to be like super exciting for us to go to. Okay, let's just take a couple more questions here. We had some questions which I've already answered in the group, things around, kind of like, how long's the imagination age going to actually go for and what comes next. And I talked about the singularity and when that's going to happen. Talking about, the quantum financial system, I answered that one as well. Eli's, asked the question, if the US dollar and other fiat currencies are in danger of hyperinflation, then what happens to stocks from American companies and stocks on American exchanges? And I talked about basically how, well, of course, if you've got the US dollar dropping by half, that does not mean all the values of those companies drop by half. If they've still got revenues in other countries, it means that they will actually double their share value, right? That's what's going to happen. It doesn't mean their share value doubled against Bitcoin, but it does double against the US dollar, right? So you're going to see basically like, $10 trillion companies, not just because those companies grew, but because the US dollar actually dropped in value as well, right? For sure, that's going to happen. There's some other questions in here, but I'm going to come over to the questions which are here on the YouTube channel at the moment. So let's have a look here. We got Chandresh here. I'll start with the guy because this is about to disappear. What type of investment do you invest in DeFi? Okay, so for me, one of the biggest aspects around the whole idea of decentralized finance is that while on the one hand, you have got the likes of Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Ethereum for sure is going up a lot faster than Bitcoin, simply because you can put contracts on it. So the entire NFT boom is really largely based on Ethereum. While you can connect contracts to a number of other cryptocurrencies, like that for sure is the number one, whereas you can't do that with Bitcoin, or not easily. You can now do it with Bitcoin Cash, right? But that's a different story. But that's the first thing, is that I'm already like in a number of different cryptocurrencies, but where I actually find the most interest is in what is going to be one of the biggest booms that's taking place right now, which is decentralized finance for property. Because property does give you a cash flow. There are a number of companies out there. So this Thursday, we're going to have Simon, who here, let me just share this. Simon is going to be sharing on our call on Thursday all around his company and what he's done to build decentralized finance. So let me just share it here. His company is in the UK, and it's a company which is called Crowd Property, right? So he set this up several years ago after coming to one of our events, and we were talking about decentralized finance and the idea of crowdfunding property. He basically like got a niche going, which were those who had developments. So these are the developments that you can see here. And these developments basically are to get the bridging finance, the equity finance, to then get the loan financing from the banks, which for 1 year, 2 years, giving you back 7.4%. Like this is again a loan which gets paid back together with the capital. And this basically, every time he does one of these, he raises this money in a matter of minutes, right? Because everyone who's in it, they just roll the money into the next one that shows up as well. And while this is much more loan financing, what Scott Picken does, which again, we're very involved in both the properties that he's done. Entrepreneur Resorts actually had a fractal ownership happen on this platform as well. This is global. And while Scott is based in South Africa, he's actually got the licenses in Australia, in the UK, South Africa, America, to be having property, and they're all commercial grade property. For as low as $5,000, you can be involved and then get a return on your investment, which is the same as commercial investment grade returns that you'd be expecting as well. So this is decentralized finance, where you no longer have to get one big investor coming in board. Everyone can just chip in 5,000 and then get the results. And this is all on the blockchain. So you're actually already getting this in a way that you can trade it even before basically it matures, right? And then someone else can actually take on the earnings from where you're at. So we are seeing the same thing that happened in the 1990s when there was the big bang with stock markets, and you could suddenly trade any stock market anywhere in the world. We're going to be able to trade any property anywhere in the world as well. You yourself wouldn't need to go and get a mortgage if you actually were on a site like this and basically raising the additional money that you actually need through the marketplace, right? And this is really the power of us leveling the battlefield. This is very much what I was saying on the call yesterday, where I said we've gone through 100 years, which has been all about the capitalization of democracy, right? Like we get the freedom and now we're going to capitalize it. And we're now going from the capitalization of democracy to the democratization of capital, right? Like now the capital's all there. And now what we're doing is actually like making it open to everybody. And this means that you're not having to be a big institution, or you're not having to be basically like, someone on the inside to be able to get the results and the kind of returns that others are getting. Plus, we actually are able to have the same influence as an investor by working together that other being in the past, we'd have to be a big hedge fund to be able to get. And if those hedge funds are out just for the cash, well, in our case, we can be out for the impact, which is why everything we're talking about is about basically how do we ensure that we are all impact investors as well. Okay, we've got Luca here. What do you think will be the effect of cryptocurrencies adoption on national currencies, both in terms of strong and weak currencies? Look, we're in this weird situation. I'm going to go back to the example of when England was looking to re-stimulate its economy, and we had a whole mass exodus over to America, right? When America was just getting started. They were taking their pounds with them, right? So basically, like you have this assumption that like the money stays in the system. But if there's an entire economy growing, which in a place you can't see, well, then the money is all going to be drawn into where the value is getting created as well. So we're going to see we're seeing a massive expansion of money, but we're also seeing a massive expansion in basically goods and services where that money can actually go, especially when you actually take the digital world and you're now seeing, NFTs for virtual properties selling for $500,000. So with this happening at the moment, what we're going to see is that the current governments that we have, starting with state governments and then US government, British government, they're simply going to start running out of money. That's the reality of it, because they're not going to be able to tax at the same level they're taxing right now. This is already happening. They're already trying to figure out, how do we tax an NFT, right? Like, how do we tax like a Bitcoin that's quadrupled in value, but that they haven't sold yet? And every government's trying to grapple with it. And then they're going to figure out how they're going to grab that tax from you, right? And so there is a whole aspect of this in the same way that the British tried to tax the Americans at the beginning of basically independence. And of course, it's like, why would we pay the British for that? And that's exactly what kind of ended up with basically the full independence that happened in America. The same is going to happen with these virtual worlds. And when that's happening, then if you're a government and you are relying on taxing your people, but they're earning money in ways that you're not able to tax, you have to either downsize as a government, or you're going to go bust. You're going to end up basically like spending too much money and just not being able to cover what you're doing anymore. And your currency is going to drop as well. There's some really interesting things that happened just today. Here, let me show you this. This basically is a couple of articles which are less than 24 hours old. And I'll just see if I can find it here. In fact, I'm going to search for it because it's easier if I do that. Here, let me just share my screen. And I'm just going to type in crypto, right? And just go to news. And you'll see here, PayPal, right? This is like 6 hours ago. PayPal launches cryptocurrency checkout. So basically now you can just automatically go from US dollars or anything into any other currency. And they're going to be doing this out to basically like 29 million merchants, right? Or basically this means every shop that uses PayPal or every online store that uses PayPal is going to basically be able to take your crypto, right? That's one thing which just totally changes the deal. And it's not just PayPal that's doing that. Look at this. This is all PayPal doing this. I saw one here, Visa. Look at this one here. Visa says, this is 20 hours ago, says it's open for business for crypto partners with new settlement move. They're doing the same thing. They're giving the chance to basically use your crypto and do that all on here. Where I get rid of this, I don't know. Already described. Okay, he wants me to sign. But basically, this here is a game changer again, and that's why we're seeing a big spike in Bitcoin today for this reason, and in the other cryptocurrencies as well. So let's take a few more questions here because I know we've gone to the half hour already, but hopefully this is valuable for everyone as we go. We got here Mila who says question. I'm going to keep on going for another 10 minutes because it looks like we've got a lot of questions here. So I'm just going to roll through as many as I can within 10 minutes, and then we'll see you tomorrow morning on the session. We've got here Luca. No, we did Luca. Okay, Mila here. Question: would you invest in property now, Netherlands boom market, but high shortages or houses, or wait for the crash and keep cash for that? You look, as long as the governments are printing money, and this is happening in the Eurozone as well, prices aren't going down. They're just not, right? Like, because when you have so much money awash in the marketplaces, it's just very, very difficult for them to go down. When there's a big spike in inflation, they're going to soften for sure. And they may even, drop 10, 20%, but it will come back again. And at the moment, there's like record prices there as well. That doesn't mean necessarily I'd go buying into property right now. If you've got money to put in property, I'd wait until Thursday and come join us on basically the DeFi session of property, because you're way better actually spreading your money across multiple zones and multiple properties where some will go up, some will go down. But this is like, don't put all your crypto money into one cryptocurrency, right? Spread it into other ones, because some will go higher, some will go down lower. You can't bet on any one asset, but you do have to have a portfolio strategy. So you said, okay, I've got 100,000 to put into property. Don't put it all into one property, right? But spread it across a number of them if you're thinking about your investment portfolio, right? Otherwise, you're the one that has to then fill up that property and make sure you're making the money from it, as opposed to having others filling it up, managing it, and you having a stake where you're getting a higher return because you're getting it at wholesale value. We have Jude here, says, question: what's the rationale for Mark switching from paying for a mortgage to renting property? So that was my experience. That's what I was sharing there, that basically if you actually have a mortgage, which is giving you an asset, the example I gave is if you actually had $600,000 in equity cash, like in a $1.2 million property, you're paying for that mortgage and you're in negative cash flow, well, then that $600,000 isn't doing an awful lot for you. If you actually say, well, I can rent a place just as nice at a lower price point. And when you've got asset inflation, then mortgage rates, rental rates come down as a percentage of the actual value of the property. So you can get really, really good deals. And you could actually say, okay, well, I could get a property that I could live in, which actually is cheaper than what I'm in right now. I can free up that $600,000 and actually make money with it, whether I'm renting out the property that I've got on the 600,000 and getting back 5%, or whether or not I actually put it into the stock market or into cryptocurrencies and get more like 50 to 100%, right? Well, why wouldn't you do that? Because that's going to pay you back much more than the cost of your rent and give you extra money for your portfolio as well, right? So if you want to say, no, I like my house, I like my garden, I'm not doing it as an investment, don't put it on your portfolio, right? And just keep it as an expense, right? But if you are thinking of it as an investment and you're thinking, am I really making most of the 600,000? Then obviously, you'd be thinking about that differently. This is not just individuals, companies do this. The number of companies that actually build a building and then sell the building off and then rent it back to themselves, right? This happens all the time because they're always thinking about, what is the return I'm getting on my assets? Okay, so we've got Carbona here who says, do you think in the far future we would trade with information because of effective manufacturing? This is already happening. This is what's so interesting. Some of you in Australia have seen what's been happening recently with the whole issue with the news, right? Like where Google and Facebook said, nope, we're not paying for the news, right? And then Google's like, okay, we will pay for the news. And then like a week or two later, Facebook goes, okay, we'll pay for the news as well. After they're like, we're going to pull out of Australia first of all. Now, why did they do that? It was because there's been this shift that's happened. And I did one of the videos I've got, which is the Joe Rogan video. That one is all about the fact that all of the top social media sites are paying for content right now. YouTube pays for content, right? So I'm here sharing with you, and YouTube's paying me for me actually just sharing. Facebook doesn't pay me for that. Google doesn't pay me for that, but YouTube does, and Google owns YouTube. Facebook owns Instagram, and Instagram now is paying influencers. So what's happened is we've suddenly realized that the actual content providers, whether it's a YouTuber or whether it is a news outlet, they've got good content and people want that content. And the platforms that are willing to pay for that content are the ones that are getting all of the people joining them. And this is why Facebook, there's not as many people so much. There's certainly not a lot of influencers on Facebook anymore. They've moved to where they're actually getting paid. And if Facebook eventually is going to either, number one, have to start paying, or number two, they're going to have to just resize or restructure because there's no way they can keep a model which isn't paying. Now they started paying media, there's a very good chance they'll start paying influencers as well. But yeah, information already, content with community is like gold because attention is everything, and attention comes from trust, and trust comes from content and community. All right, so that basically hopefully answers that question. Last two questions. So we have Crate Basop here says, what do you think of buying NFT art, work, or sports NFT collectibles? There's always going to be a market for it. Like right now, if you look at some of what the guys out there are doing, Metakoven, who is the person who basically bought Beeple's work for $69 million. He's based in Singapore. He lives in a condo there. He wasn't even in NFTs 3 years ago. He just had like a coding job. And he's like, I'm going to get into this NFT thing. And what he did was he bought one of the early Beeple. If you remember, Beeple sold one of his first for like $66,000, I think it was, or 660,000. He's like, wow, that's a lot of money. But then what happened was Metakoven then took that and then basically fractionalized it and then sold it to a whole bunch of people and made himself another $1.5 million profit, right? $1.5 million, like just by basically saying, well, like I'm gonna get a whole bunch of people that are gonna actually share in this at the same time. Tomorrow I'll be sharing about one of the crypto whales in Hong Kong who actually set up his own cryptocurrency, and he actually has got his entire NFT artwork, which is basically IPO'd, right? His whole NFT artwork is underpinned by his cryptocurrency, and he sold already $100 million worth of his cryptocurrency, which then is funding all of his NFT work. And as that grows in value, he's not really putting any money in it. He's pulled out like millions of dollars himself, but he's collecting the things he always wanted to collect. And he's got other people actually supporting that as well. So this is not necessarily about you having to go out there and pick the right thing in the right way, but you can if you want to. So in the same way, right, if I'm just going to go to prices here, and I'm just going to kind of like open up that in the same way that you can already have a look at the total crypto market. And, there's these different links here that you can go to. So this one here is on CoinMarketCap, where you can see total for the whole market. And then like, how's each one doing and how big is it, right? In terms of the size, you can see Bitcoin's already gone over basically like $1 trillion now, right? And how the others are all growing as well. The same is now for NFTs, right? So here is OpenSea, where you can see all of the different NFT marketplaces and how big these are at the moment and how much volume they're actually generating at the moment and how many owners are actually part of this in every one of these as well. So, your ability to see just how much this market is growing is not going to stop anytime soon. And it's going to be going to more and more real world areas. Like you buy your ticket, right, with NFT, right? So you can actually sell that on to other people. You'll buy your ability to basically buy new sneakers or buy any collectible of any sort, right, with NFTs. And especially when we do this crossover from digital assets to digital assets connected with real world assets, when that happens, then like the sky's the limit, right? Which is why, while I have Bitcoin, I have a lot more Ethereum, a lot more Ether than Bitcoin off the back of what's going on right now. Final question, right? Let me go to the final one here. Whatever's been biggest learning from this session and from today, please do post it. I know some people watching this going, I'm not even part of the challenge right now. So if you are part of the challenge, you're going to be part of this for the rest of the week. Post any comment you'd like to make for those who are actually watching this for the first time and seeing what this is about. And my very, very final question here is going to be from Andy Brown. He says, question, do you have a blueprint for creating a Society 5.0 company, e.g. decentralized on the blockchain, that will be attractive to forward-thinking investors in the near future? This is a great question. And the answer is yes, we do. We have actually something called Entrepreneur 5.0, which is one of our micro schools. We have a bonus session on Thursday for anyone who's interested to just talk through our courses for the year. So you can kind of see the things we're doing. So we are focusing mainly right now at how do you be an investor, but we obviously have a blueprint because like two companies I just mentioned, Crowd Property and Worth My Grade, that was all growing through GeniusU and through the mentoring and basically following this blueprint. We've followed it ourselves with Genius Group, which has allowed us to already really build our valuation up and our size of our business up as well. And we also are using it with all of the mentoring that we do for companies around the world that are either listing or raising capital or growing very much in the same way that these exponential companies are growing. So I'll share more about that on the Thursday. But yeah, answer is we do. It works. And it's actually based on the PayPal Mafia playbook, right? So if you say, well, who's the PayPal Mafia? That's Elon Musk. That's the YouTube founders. That's Peter Thiel. That's all the guys that were in the original PayPal group. Reid Hoffman from LinkedIn. They all went out and built billion-dollar businesses. In fact, between them, they built over $10 billion businesses. That was not by luck, right? They did it because they knew exactly what the playbook needed to be. And there's a number of kind of really, really good like maps that allow you to actually see how to do that. And every one of them is in this space as well, as we're seeing right now as well. So I hope this has been valuable for everyone, that you've enjoyed this extra session that we're running. If you are interested in coming and joining us on the challenge, I'm going to be doing this every day as a live Q&A in the afternoon. If I missed any of your questions, my apologies. I'll look to come back and try to answer some of them, but you can also post them on the Facebook chat we're going to do tomorrow. And then we will also be back here tomorrow evening and taking the next round of questions and the next level of insight in the things we're doing as well. Thanks very much, everyone, for joining. And we will catch up with you on our session 9 o'clock tomorrow, and then back here at 5 o'clock UK time as well. See you all later. Bye.